Brazil, a wealthy businessman gets kidnapped. The tense negotiations air on live TV. 3,600 miles away, in Nicaragua, another kind of disaster, seemingly unrelated, yet inextricably linked. Decades of violence and revolution once tore these streets apart. And the residents of Managua, Nicaragua thought those days had passed. May 23rd, 1993. While most people in the Santa Rosa neighborhood outside of the capital sleep, a nightmarish blast exposes the hideous secret right under their feet. And unearths a crucial piece of evidence, missing for almost 4 years.
The explosion was very loud, frightening. There was a lot of dust, windows broken. It totally destroyed 16 houses.
The blast awakens Managua police officer Marlon Montano, who lives nearby. He's the first on the scene and gets right to work. Three explosions demolish an auto repair shop and the neighborhood around it. Emergency personnel respond quickly. Dozens of injured residents wander in a daze. Authorities rush to set up field triage units to treat the wounded, as rescuers search for people trapped in the extensive wreckage. The destruction reminds many of the earthquakes that have rocked the region in the past. But this is no natural disaster. Montano's first job, find out what caused such a large explosion. Investigators suspect a propane gas tank blew up. But some distinctive metal fragments strewn throughout the area suggest something more sinister. Authorities find remnants of a grenade launcher crushed into a front yard. Montano and the investigators approach the obvious flashpoint of the explosion, the auto repair shop, where they discover something much more grisly: human remains. By coincidence, criminal investigator Carlos Bendaña also runs Nicaragua's Interpol division at the time, a job that will soon prove crucial.
The blast caused total destruction. I saw body parts from victims more than 100 yards from the site.
In the chaos, police make another startling discovery: a weapons bunker hidden under the auto repair shop. As investigators sift through the debris, they uncover a steel-reinforced concrete stronghold, complete with metal doors. Tunnels branch out, leading to several more underground chambers, housing a massive arsenal of deadly weapons.
I'm talking about AK-47s and missiles, bazookas.
In the bunker, police find nearly 24 surface-to-air missiles, many with their serial numbers obliterated, and a store of C4 plastic explosives produced only for the military. But Bendaña and the investigators know these explosives have another use. On the black market, they're a favorite item for terrorists. And that escalates the importance of this case right to the top. The discovery of the illegal weapons arsenal and its terrorist links alarm law-abiding Nicaraguans. After decades of upheaval under the Somoza dictatorship, followed by a revolution by the left-wing Sandinistas, Nicaragua still struggles for stability. The rebirth of democracy began in 1990. when Nicaraguans elected moderate Violeta Chamorro to the presidency. Yet trouble still plagues the country. Guerrilla bands remain armed and organized. Chamorro knows she needs help to dismantle them. After a 14-year absence, Nicaragua rejoins Interpol. The organization offers its investigative brains and muscle to the struggling nation.
They didn't have the experience to handle all of this. The country had just gotten out of a military regime.
Brazilian Federal Police Chief Romeo Tuma is the vice president of Interpol in Latin America. The bunker proves terrorists are working to destabilize Latin America again.
President Chamorro was trying to reinstall democracy. It was alarming that they found these kinds of weapons in their country.
Then, as they continue sifting through the weapons bunker, they make an even more chilling discovery. Proof of a global terrorist conspiracy. The stash includes hundreds of fraudulent identification papers from over 20 countries. Police find driver's licenses, birth certificates, and passports with the photos of known guerrilla leaders, enabling them to operate anywhere in the world. Among the papers are documents for two Canadian nationals, David Spencer and Christine Lamont, both convicted, controversially, in a high-profile kidnapping several years before.
They had 4 different passports apiece, some with photographs with eyeglasses, some without. They would use these to move secretly from country to country under different names.
To the investigators, the documents show that terrorist groups throughout the world had banded together to form a well-organized terror cooperative, a precursor of organizations like today's Al-Qaeda. The new discovery changes the investigation. Former U.S. Interpol Director John Emhoff.
Once you have a cache of information such as this, then the impetus isn't so much just to solve the crime of who blew up this building, but to also understand how far-reaching this criminal enterprise, this terrorist enterprise is.
The terror groups likely entered the country years earlier, while the revolutionary Sandinistas ruled.
Nicaragua, under the Sandinistas, became an asylum. Any foreign group involved in violent, anti-government political activity was offered protection there and found refuge.
When the Sandinistas fell, many of these violent refugees stayed behind. Now Interpol realizes they've combined their resources, becoming well-armed and organized. Managua police take no chances. They place the fake IDs, passports, files, and other documents under heavy guard. President Chamorro orders Nicaraguan Interpol Chief Carlos Bendaña to lead the investigation and to contact the countries cited in the documents. Something big is brewing. Terrorism, possibly on a global level. And Interpol means to stop it.
I used Interpol's resources to call different countries to see if they would collaborate with the Nicaraguan police.
Interpol's Romeo Tuma is one of the first to respond. He travels from Brazil to Managua to help organize the manhunt for the group behind the stolen passports and forged IDs. He faces a daunting task. The massive amount of evidence, over 6,000 documents, fills 40 file boxes. Meanwhile, Managua police work the local angle. They track down an address for the proprietor of the auto repair shop, Miguel Moreno. Apparently a typical small business owner who's harboring known terrorists. Investigators need to find out why. Police raid the suspect's home. But Moreno's gone. The respectable auto repair shop was a flawless cover for the terrorist groups to stash weapons and documents. But how much did the employees know about it?
We found out that a night watchman at the shop had been injured in the explosion. And we went to the hospital to question him.
Police learned that shop owner Miguel Moreno's real name is Eusebio Arzaluz, a member of the terrorist organization called Spanish Basque ETA. He's wanted in Spain in connection with several terrorist acts, including murder. Managua police notify Interpol.
Obviously, there's a time element here. That has to be done quickly. So what are we talking about? We're talking about an ability to communicate with the other country immediately, and that spells Interpol.
Striking before the trail goes cold, Interpol issues a red notice for the arrest of Eusebio Arzaluz. The terrorist now appears on Interpol's most wanted list, alerting member countries to apprehend him. But he's probably already assumed another identity. Among the illicit documents recovered from the bunker, investigators find dossiers on business, political, and corporate leaders from Latin America, Mexico, and Brazil, leading to a chilling realization.
The dossiers confirmed they were financing their organizations through kidnapping businessmen in Latin-speaking countries.
Each dossier contains a complete profile on each potential kidnapping victim. Daily travels and personal habits, security concerns, maps, suggested ransom amounts.
The best kind of information that a law enforcement agency can get is information that's anticipatory of a crime.
Interpol now has a leg up on the kidnappers. They act fast to protect the targets. Interpol notifies the countries where the targeted subjects live. In many cases, they foil the kidnappers, but in one case, they are too late. One of the dossiers names a Brazilian tycoon kidnapped almost 4 years earlier. December 11th, 1989. Supermarket magnate Abilio Diniz, one of the wealthiest men in Brazil, leaves his mansion for work in Sao Paulo. The Diniz company, built by his father, has an annual profit of 65 million US dollars. Diniz, separated from his wife, lives with his sister. He has a close-knit family, and his kidnappers have studied it very thoroughly, preparing to make their move. In less than a minute, the gunmen capture Abilio Diniz and disappear, thinking they left behind no witnesses. But their flawless plan has a crack. In 1993, an explosion in Nicaragua reveals a cache of weapons and plans for a string of kidnappings by an alliance of terrorist groups. The kidnapping plot sheds new light on the 1989 abduction of 52-year-old Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz.
Abilio Diniz is one of the richest men in Brazil. He is the president of one of the largest supermarket chains in the country. He was on his way to work. He was driving in his car.
Isabel Vincent was the Latin American bureau chief for the Toronto Globe and Mail newspaper and lived in Brazil at that time.
The kidnappers cut him off with a van, a fake ambulance that they had created, and they drove him off.
A witness to the abduction recognizes Denise and rushes to the millionaire's mansion to notify his sister, who lives with him.
Hello. Okay?
Organized and efficient, the kidnappers quickly cover their tracks and vanish with Denise. By the time the witness tells Denise's sister what he saw, it's too late. Terrified, she calls the police. Nelson Guimarães, the chief of Sao Paulo's anti-kidnapping division, takes the call.
I always say that kidnapping is made of two halves, like a game. The first half belongs to the kidnappers. Our main goal is to preserve that victim's life. In the second half, it's up to us to recover the victim.
John Emhoff, former head of Interpol in the United States.
There's always this cat and mouse game that goes on between the criminals and the police officer. And it really is part of why police come to this work. They want to play that chess game.
But the game is a dangerous one. An epidemic of abductions in Latin America in the late 80s have left many victims dead. Over 500 abductions in 1 year alone. Investigators vow to bring this one to a safe and peaceful ending. It won't be easy. These kidnappers are skilled, experienced, and violent. If they don't get paid, their victims will die, along with anyone who gets in the way. 30 excruciating minutes after they snatch Abilio Denise, the kidnappers make their first contact. A woman warns the Denise family not to contact police if they want him back safely.
Onde ele está?
She says she will call back with further instructions and will kill Denise if their demands are not met. No one knows whether the kidnappers have already harmed Denise. His family, desperate to learn if he is all right, will do anything to free him. Within hours, police find the vehicle used in the kidnapping just a few miles from the Denise home. The kidnappers' attempt to disguise it as an ambulance only worked during the heist.
When we found the ambulance, we started to examine it thoroughly. We practically took it apart. Inside the ventilation system, we found a business card from a mechanic's garage near the center of the city.
The police try to calm the Denise family and convince them to trust the experienced investigators rather than act on their own.
We instantly set in motion our plans, tapping phones and putting agents out on the street.
Pronto. Attenda.
After several tense hours waiting, the Denise family gets another call.
Alô.
This time, the kidnappers name their price for the safe return of Abilio Denise, $30 million.
Darei o que queres.
Following advice from the police, the family agrees but tells them it will take time to get the money. The kidnappers say they will call back later to arrange a drop.
Você faz bem.
Obrigada.
Eu volto.
Investigators leave to coordinate the operation from police headquarters. Meanwhile, at their hideout, the kidnappers blast music into Denise's cell to drown out conversation and disorient their captive. It's psychological terror. The police know that every tick of the clock works against them. The kidnappings they don't solve quickly often end in death. Brazilian police rush to the auto repair shop printed on the card found in the fake ambulance.
We questioned the owner and started to unveil the mystery of the kidnapping.
The owner informs them that a middle-aged man and a younger man wearing glasses recently brought the vehicle in for repairs. He did not get any names, but he gives the police the contact number for the two men. Investigators trace the phone number to an apartment in Sao Paulo. Officers enter the apartment. But find it empty. Technicians install microphones and transmitters, hoping to learn where Denise is being held.
Then we started to do surveillance on the building where the phone was. We even got an apartment close by.
They see several men coming and going.
Our investigators listened to the people inside the apartment. We were certain that these were the people who left the ambulance behind.
When one suspect gets left alone at the apartment, officers sweep in to get him. In the raid, police arrest Ulysses Acevedo, a known terrorist. But he's in no mood to cooperate. While the Denise family hopes and prays, Brazilian police know that time is running out. Police and Interpol pursue the kidnappers of wealthy Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz. Their investigation leads authorities to an apartment in Sao Paulo and to a known terrorist named Ulysses Acevedo. Investigators haul Acevedo in for interrogation. He claims to know nothing about the Denise abduction, but authorities don't buy it. Nelson Guimarães.
He has a long criminal history. He belonged to a revolutionary movement in Chile, the MIR, and he committed some robberies there. He had a knowledge of paramilitary strategy.
In the apartment where Brazilian police arrested Acevedo, they discover a lead that brings them another step closer to finding Abilio Diniz.
We found a light bill for an apartment on Charles Darwin Street. It was another place they rented for their kidnapping activities.
Police stake out the apartment, laying low so the kidnappers won't spot them.
Since we still didn't know where the victim was, we didn't want to raise the kidnappers' suspicions. We didn't want to make too much noise because it could jeopardize the victim's life.
Instead of raiding the place, they decide to take the suspects down one by one as they appear. Very quietly, police apprehend 4 more suspects from the Rue Charles Darwin address. But still, no sign of Abilio Denise. Five days after the abduction, the kidnappers try to increase the pressure on the Denise family, hoping to extract money from the wealthy Brazilians. The kidnappers force Abilio to write a note begging them to pay the ransom money now, or his captors will kill him. The Denise family waits, desperate for news, and grows more frustrated as the days slip away. At any time, the kidnappers could panic and kill Abilio. The police try to assure them they're getting close. But the uncertainty gnaws at the family and the authorities. Interrogations continue. Slowly, carefully, police untangle a complex conspiracy, organized like a private army. Isabel Vincent of the Toronto Globe and Mail.
It was clear to the police from very early on that these people had some kind of paramilitary training, all of them. And it was clear that, all of the people knew how to use AK-47s. They could go to sleep at the drop of a hat when their commanders told them to go to sleep. They all had their various functions. They were highly organized and highly sophisticated.
All the suspects belong to various revolutionary groups, banding together for one reason: to finance terrorism through kidnapping. Extracting details takes time, and time is their enemy.
Só algumas pessoas sabiam o local correto do cativeiro.
Only a few people knew where Denise was actually being held. The others only knew pieces of information. Some people would know activities up to a point. We had to interrogate with caution, one by one, to know the link where one piece ended and another would begin.
Five days into the abduction, a suspect finally cracks. He tells police where Abilio Denise is being held. Taking one of the kidnapping suspects with them, authorities head to the house. The plan is to wait for more support, then move in fast. But 2 pumped-up officers jump the gun and start the takedown on their own. The heavily armed kidnappers see only the 2 officers and open fire. The police have lost the element of surprise. They regroup and order even more backup. Soon, 200 tactical officers from the elite anti-kidnapping division surround the house. What should have been a surprise attack has become a tense standoff. The terrorists bring Abilio Denise to a window. He's still alive, but they threaten to kill him if they don't get what they want. The police hope to avoid bloodshed. They encourage the kidnappers to pass notes back and forth. But the negotiations don't go well.
Eles haviam feito uma exigência.
They demanded $30 million,
Carro forte para que eles
an armored
pudessem
car,
sair dali, dentro do carro
and an
forte,
airplane to take them out of the country.
avião para levá-los todos fora do país. E essa
These were their
era
demands, and they didn't want to discuss them.
Não haveria nenhum tipo de conversa. Como
Obviously,
eu havia assumido
I absolutely didn't agree with any of those terms.
evidentemente que eu não concordei em absoluto com nenhum desses termos.
The Denise family begins to lose hope. They don't think the police can bring Abilio home alive. The stalemate continues into the night. The tactical units take risks to stay visible and show movement outside. The kidnappers want to stop negotiating, but the police refuse to let them rest. The plan is to wear them down.
This was a very complicated situation, requiring lots of people from the police forces, the shock police, people from the military police who specialize in more violent conflicts. At any time, things could have gotten out of control.
They cut all power, plunging the kidnappers into darkness. It's a risk. No one can predict how the kidnappers will react. They might cave in and surrender, or they could panic and kill their hostage. An organized network of terrorist groups from different countries has kidnapped wealthy Brazilian businessman Abilio Diniz. The Brazilian police capture several members and surround the kidnappers in a house in Sao Paulo. The first night of the standoff passes with no surrender. In the morning, the kidnappers ask police to inform the media, and the cameras show up soon after. Isabel Vincent of the Toronto Globe and Mail.
The standoff was pretty tense. It lasted for hours with the kidnappers who were in the house threatening to kill Diniz and threatening to kill themselves.
On the same day, history is in the making in Brazil. The country holds its first democratic elections for president in over 30 years. But the Diniz kidnapping overshadows the election. Sao Paulo Anti-Kidnapping Division Chief Nelson Guimarães.
Eles haviam pedido os embaixadores.
We restarted the negotiations, and they requested to speak with some ambassadors. The police offered them the Cardinal of Sao Paulo to intermediate.
Hoping to resolve the standoff peacefully, the Cardinal of Sao Paulo, a respected human rights advocate, carries messages between the kidnappers and police. Abilio's family watches the drama unfold on live television. They're willing to do whatever the kidnappers ask. Police hold firm, not wanting to give in to terrorists. As the tension rises, no one outside knows the fate of Diniz. His captors, frustrated and cornered, might end it their way. Hours pass, and still no word. It doesn't look good. Then, on Sunday morning, 6 days since the kidnapping and 36 hours into the standoff, the exhausted kidnappers finally give it up. They announce they're coming out. 2 Canadians leave the house first. David Spencer, 26, and Christine Lamont, 30.
So when the kidnappers actually came out of the house, they were captured on live television. And this was going on at the same time that people were voting in the elections. So at the end of the day, you have these 10 kidnappers coming out, and also the election results. But the kidnapping was so sensational that it dwarfed anything that was going on in the elections.
The 8 remaining kidnappers are all Latin Americans. But still, no sign of Denise, alive or dead. Brazilian police move into the house to search for Denise. While the family and the country holds its breath. The investigators of Interpol tie together 2 seemingly unrelated cases. An explosion in Managua, Nicaragua in 1993 that exposes a weapons bunker used by terrorists. And the 1989 kidnapping of millionaire Abilio Diniz by a group of those terrorists in Sao Paulo, Brazil. After a tense standoff on live TV, the kidnappers finally give themselves up. But the fate of the victim is agonizingly uncertain. Police move through the house carefully. In the basement, they find a crude holding cell. It's dark. No movement. Inside, they find Abilio Diniz, alive. While millions watch on television, Abilio Diniz walks free after 6 days in solitary confinement. Sao Paulo Anti-Kidnapping Division Chief Nelson Guimarães.
The victim was confused, weak. He had no sense of day or night.
Police scour the house for evidence. The plywood cell, 1.5 by 3 meters, contains a lamp, a small mattress, and a portable toilet. The kidnappers controlled light, sound, and their victims' movement. Clearly, they are professionals. But who was their mastermind, and what were they out to accomplish? Interrogations begin for the newly captured kidnappers. Investigators discover that David Spencer, a Canadian who claims he is a human rights worker, rented the house under an alias. He and Christine Lamont make a bizarre assertion. They had no idea that Denise was being held in their home. But police find evidence implicating Lamont and Spencer, numerous aliases, forged documents, and phony passports. Items more befitting international criminals than human rights workers. Even so, Canadian human rights advocates lobbied on their behalf, and Lamont and Spencer swore they were not involved.
A participação dos canadenses no sequestro.
The Canadians totally participated in this plot, from beginning to end. They rented a car, they rented real estate, and both of them were there, guarding the victim. They played a striking role in the plot.
In 1990, ignoring international uproar, a Brazilian judge sentences the pair to 28 years in prison. Still, they maintain their innocence. But 3 years later, and 3,600 miles away, when the three explosions rip through an auto repair shop in Nicaragua, Interpol discovers even more evidence connecting Lamont and Spencer to the terrorists. Journalist Isabel Vincent.
What linked the bunker to the Dini's kidnapping were a number of personal items from Christine Lamont and David Spencer. They were the link. The documents from Christine and David were false driver's licenses, all sorts of things to cover their tracks, false passports.
Brazilian investigator Nelson Guimarães believes that the Nicaraguan weapons bunker connection provides irrefutable proof of Spencer's and Lamont's guilt.
To the people who said that the kidnappers were human rights advocates, I would say that the reality is that these are cruel people who deprive other people of freedom.
Interpol's Romeo Tuma.
They were caught red-handed with the victim in the first place. In the second place, all the documents, most of the fake documents, American passports belonging to the Canadians, fake signatures, were linked to that criminal organization.
Now Interpol set its sights on breaking up that terrorist syndicate. With information gathered from the weapons bunker in Nicaragua, Interpol tracks down its members.
The biggest revelation that came out of the bunker explosion was the fact that these groups, these terrorist groups from different countries, were in fact working together and pooling their resources, both financial and military and everything else.
Interpol might have never uncovered the terror coalition if not for the careless mixing of C4 and detonators that ignited the catastrophic 1993 explosion. Police take 6 people into custody, including the night watchman of the auto repair shop in Nicaragua. In 1995, they're tried and convicted on charges ranging from property damage to document forgery. 2 others, including the auto repair shop owner Eusebio Arzaluz, who fled to Cuba, are tried in absentia. They too are convicted and remain listed as threats to national security. After serving 10 years in Brazil, Lamont and Spencer win themselves a transfer to a Canadian jail and, remarkably, are released 10 weeks later. On rare occasions, international law enforcement officers discover a way into the shadowy world of terrorist organizations. The Nicaraguan explosion offered detailed intelligence on how efficiently these groups operate. The intel ultimately saves lives and helps fight terror.
We learned that there were a lot of people who were professionals, engineers, architects, who had come together in this group in order to build bunkers, study logistically how kidnappings could be carried out. There were a lot of strategy sessions going on, and certainly the documents found in Nicaragua illuminated a lot of that.
With that crime ring dissolved, Interpol stands better prepared to fight any others that come along. Brazilian federal police chief Romeo Tuma, now a senator, makes fighting terrorism a priority.
This group provided the motivation for police to improve their methods to reduce the number of kidnappings. And after September 11th, terrorism became something that no international community accepts. So Interpol will be a permanent security force.
Recent history has shown that no nation on Earth is safe from terrorism, and the fight against it continues worldwide. Holly Maddox was the oldest child in a family of 7. She grew up in a middle-class home in the town of Tyler, Texas.
Holly was very much a caretaker, big sister, kind of surrogate mom in a lot of ways.
Holly's sister, Meg Wakeman.
Holly had a special closeness with all of us. Between Holly and I think there was a mentorship, and there was a very true big sister, kind of a guide.
Holly loved the arts, and in 1965, she left her family behind to study at Bryn Mawr College outside of Philadelphia. It is the early 1970s, and Philadelphia is a haven for artists and freethinkers of all types. Most notably, among them is Ira Einhorn, a man who rose to prominence during the 60s peace movement. He taught at the University of Pennsylvania. A self-styled guru of the decade of peace and love, Einhorn preaches nonviolence, campaigns against the war, and lectures to packed houses. He even claims to have created Philadelphia's first Earth Day in 1970, a claim widely disputed today. He's a respected intellectual, revered by the faithful. And although Holly doesn't know it at first, he's very, very dangerous. After she graduates from college, Holly meets the man who calls himself the Unicorn. Once he met her, he told his friends he was determined to have her, and quickly won her over. Their relationship continues for 5 years, but Holly decides it is time for her to move on. On September 10th, 1977, she tells Einhorn she's through with him.
What? What's wrong? Why? Because you don't listen to what I say. That's why.
But Einhorn is not through with Holly.
Where are you gonna go? No! You're not going! No!
Over 1,250 miles away, in Texas, Holly's family becomes concerned. She has always kept in touch with them, writing letters frequently, but her last few letters trouble her family.
Her letters about Ira were always, Ira did this and Ira did that, and I think there was something underlying it that made us wonder, but what about you? It wasn't their relationship, it was all about Ira. It went into the dynamics of possession, and I don't believe she knew at that point how much of a possession that she was to him. And we didn't really know how to tell her, you need to get out and you need to run as fast as you can away from this man.
But then, Holly's letters stop completely. They haven't heard from her in weeks, and she's missed family birthdays, which she never does.
Here it was the early middle of October, no birthday cards for the 3 birthdays in October.
Don't trust him?
There were no phone calls, no letters or anything. So this was very odd. We knew that something must have happened. So Mom tried to call her.
The last number they have for Holly is at Ira Einhorn's. Mrs. Maddox asks if he's seen Holly recently.
I just thought maybe you might know where she is.
And he said no, he hadn't. And he elaborated just a little bit and said she went to the store a couple Sundays ago, and I got out of the shower and then she was gone. She just never came back. And Mom thought he sounded awfully nonchalant, but then she also realized, well, they had just broken up, so maybe he's, upset about that.
Right. He hasn't heard.
The family reports Holly missing with Philadelphia police. But to the Philly PD, nothing about her disappearance seems unusual.
The police were unable to do any type of a search, really, because there wasn't any evidence that there was some crime committed. During that fall and winter, I think we were all holding on to whatever hope we had that, well, maybe she really does just want some time to herself. Maybe we're going to hear from her by Christmas, maybe something like that.
Yet the holiday season arrives with no word from Holly. In Texas, December 1977. Holly's family hires retired FBI Special Agent Bob Stevens to investigate her disappearance. The private investigator first wants to know about Holly. She excelled in high school and college, always doing the right thing.
I know a lot of people characterize Holly as an all-American girl, and that's still not quite doing her justice, even though she was so pretty and she was the cheerleader and salutatorian and all of that. She kind of went beyond all of those things. She didn't just stay in a category. She certainly had an aura about her. She had a power that was within that. She had a gentleness and kindness and goodness.
The family tells Stevens about Einhorn, the breakups, and the subsequent disappearance.
A particular card for...
Holly's sister told Stevens about a school trip to England in 1977. Holly was there on vacation with Einhorn.
No matter where they went in this person's house where they were staying, Ira kept tagging along. And Buffy and Holly couldn't have any private time together. And finally, Holly said, "Leave us alone."
Later, when she could talk, Holly told her sister of Einhorn's possessive actions and that he cheated on her with a number of women.
I'm here for you, okay?
Although she was worried what he would do when she left, she was determined to go.
Holly already had a place to stay, but it wasn't going to come open until, I believe, October 1st. So that was kind of the last we knew. We were waiting for information around October 1st about what her new phone and address and contact information would be.
It's hard to imagine a famous peace activist would hurt his girlfriend, but Bob Stevens has to check. He travels to Philadelphia and teams up with former FBI agent, Philly private investigator T.J. Felding. They want to question Einhorn. He is the last person known to have seen Holly.
Can I help you? Mr.
Einhorn casually reiterates that Holly went out around September 10th and never came back.
She's not here.
He appears unfazed by the investigators.
3 weeks ago, I haven't seen her since. Why did she leave? Sorry.
Without his permission or a warrant, they can't enter the apartment. But they can interview neighbors. Felding tracks down 2 students who have lived beneath Einhorn.
How long has it been like that? For months.
The story they tell them is more ominous. In late September 1977, one student recalls hearing loud thumps and a single scream coming from Einhorn's apartment. Weeks later, the students noticed a foul odor and a brown fluid coming from the ceiling. They did their best to get rid of it, scrubbing over and over with bleach. The smell reminded their friends of a morgue. The building's landlord tells the PI the area above is a closet in Einhorn's apartment, and that he had tried to find whatever was causing the smell. But Einhorn refused to let him into his apartment, saying he had important papers to protect. It all seemed odd to the landlord, but this was Ira Einhorn, so he didn't force the issue. Felding takes the case to Philadelphia police homicide detective Michael Chidwood.
The investigation when I read it, was like an Alfred Hitchcock story. There was suspense, there was sex, there was violence, and in my opinion, there was murder.
Chitwood believes Einhorn killed Holly in the apartment, but suspicion based on a private investigation is not enough for an arrest, especially with such a high-profile suspect.
My job was to re-interview everybody and develop enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant to go search Ira Einhorn's apartment.
The warrant application has to be perfect.
He was a big deal at Penn, he was a big deal at Harvard, he was associated with the Abby Hoffmans and Jerry Rubins of the world.
Amidst the political turmoil of the late 70s, false accusations against a leader of the peace movement would trigger a terrible backlash against the cops. Chitwood compiles witness statements about the stain, floor plans of the apartments, bank records that show over $20,000 untouched in Holly's account since that September. Everything suggests she was killed then and held at one time in Einhorn's closet. But to prove it, Chitwood must get in that apartment and to that closet. March 28th, 1979. The search warrant has been signed. Investigators hope to find hairs or traces of blood. 18 months after Holly vanished, her family hopes for resolution.
And they are now finally going to go in and get some answers, find out what happened to Holly. And I think after this long period of time, in a way, we knew we were going to be sensing some relief. But we also knew we were going to be sensing probably the devastation of loss.
Chitwood heads straight for the closet, directly above the stain in the apartment below. But the door is padlocked, and Einhorn claims there's no key.
I said, fine. I got a crowbar from the evidence technician, and instead of breaking the lock, I took the hasp off. So where the screws were screwed in, I took that off so that the lock was still intact, and I opened the door.
Inside the storage closet, Chitwood finds a trunk, a suitcase, a woman's purse, and notices the faint smell of decay.
Inside there were various pieces of identification of Holly Maddox, Social Security card, library card, driver's license, all types of property that women usually carry in their bag.
The suitcase is Holly's too. By now, Detective Chitwood is sure what he will find inside the trunk.
And I had been a homicide detective for a lot of years, and I've seen dead bodies, and I've seen decomposed bodies. This was decomposition. This was a dead body. This was death.
You got a key to this?
They're only a few more clues away from solving the mystery of what happened to Holly Maddox. But that's just the beginning of the deep mysteries that surround Ira Einhorn, the peace activist who's showing a violent side that may have turned deadly. In March 1979, Philadelphia police searched the apartment of peace activist Ira Einhorn after the mysterious disappearance of his girlfriend, Holly Maddox. Inside a locked closet, they find a locked trunk. Einhorn denies having keys to both locks. As he did with the door, Detective Michael Chitwood forces the hasp on the trunk. It's packed full. On top, a Philadelphia newspaper dated mid-September 1977.
That was the date we were focusing on. That's the date she disappeared. Now we got a steamer trunk. We got the smell of death. And I figured, uh-oh, this is for real. This is it.
Under more papers, a mummified human hand. There's no doubt it's Holly.
It almost looked like she was trying to push up in my opinion. Like she had been placed in there and then, you know, had tried to get out.
Crime Tech 1.
In the kitchen, Chitwood spots more possible evidence. A ring of keys. The ones Einhorn denied having.
One key fit the padlock to the closet door. The other key fit the lock to the steamer trunk. As far as I was concerned, that was the slam dunk. That was the home run, because he had denied he had the keys, didn't know where they were.
In spite of the overwhelming evidence, police are shocked.
Never in a million years did we expect to go in there and find the body. It just wasn't feasible. It just couldn't happen. This was Ira Einhorn. He was a guru. He was a political person. So he was a cultural icon.
Philadelphia police charge the Unicorn with 1 count of murder. At autopsy, the medical examiner uses dental records to confirm the body is Holly Maddox.
Yes, please.
She was killed by at least 6 severe blows to the head, which caused multiple fractures. The ME notes that Holly might have been still clinging to life when placed in the footlocker. But still, the police keep asking why. And why would Einhorn keep the body? Forensic psychologist Dr. Chris Mohandy believes it's all about control.
What I think drove Ira to kill Holly Maddox was her rejection and leaving him. It was one of these, I'll be the one to say when this relationship ends and how it ends. And thus he took the control back that she was trying to take. And then he added another step to it. Not only are you not leaving me, but you're not leaving me even after you're dead. I'll show you.
A year and a half after Holly's disappearance, the Maddox family finally gets an answer. Now, they must cope with the truth.
I couldn't think of how to react. When I found out in the manner that Holly was killed and then stuffed in a trunk, I mean, just the idea of someone being beat to death and then stuffed in a trunk was so beyond my imagination. Holly was dead. I was never going to see my older sister again. She was never going to be a physical part of the family again. And how on earth are we going to get through this?
There is some consolation knowing Holly's killer is in custody.
Good, I'm glad they got him. I'm glad he didn't run. I guess there's going to be a trial now.
But it's not that simple. The fiery activist declares his innocence and makes an astonishing claim that Holly's murder was a CIA or KGB conspiracy to frame him.
This was big news.
Lynn Abraham was the Philadelphia district attorney on the Einhorn case.
So he made up the story, and CIA conspiracy theories always are big sellers, so a lot of his gullible friends believed it. They never even stopped for a minute to say, ooh, there's a dead body in this guy's closet. Ooh, I better step back from this. No, they just ran headlong into court, ready to stand up for their guy and say that he was really a wonderful human being.
Einhorn is represented by soon-to-be U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. At his arraignment, a wave of high-profile supporters, including investment bankers, university professors, even an Episcopalian minister, testify on his behalf. The momentum somehow sways a sympathetic judge, who, in a shocking move, releases Einhorn on bail.
And when that happened and he got out, I said to the DA, he's never going to go to trial. He's going to take off. There's no way in the world that this guy is going to go to trial. He's gone. Because he had connections all over the world.
Pre-trial hearings stretch from months to years. Then, on January 14th, 1981, Einhorn fails to appear for a hearing. Officers go to bring him in,
Police, open up.
but he does not answer his door.
What do you know? Everybody was sure exactly what would happen did happen. And it did. He skipped. He disappeared.
Desperate to find him, police track Einhorn's last movements. They learn he sold his car and drew most of his money from the bank, leaving less than a $10 balance. None of Einhorn's friends know where he is gone. On the brink of going to trial for murder, Einhorn's back in control.
After Ira disappeared in January of '81, that, of course, was another devastating loss.
Einhorn has taken his new girlfriend, Anna Jo Williams, with him and left the country. Police worry that Einhorn is drawing in another potential victim. Richard DiBenedetto, chief of the DA office's fugitive unit, now has the case. He checks into Einhorn's girlfriend.
A day or so after he fled, the girlfriend got a call from him, and her sister drove her to the airport and she got on a plane. Now, the sister wasn't sure where she was going, but she thought it might have been either England or Ireland.
Because Einhorn likely fled the state and the country, the FBI joins the case, and Special Agent Michael Carbonell partners with DiBenedetto.
The FBI obtained a warrant for his arrest. It's called unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. And then he became a federal fugitive, which gave us the authority to look for him anywhere in the world.
To best do that, the Philadelphia police and the FBI need Interpol. At the time, John Emhoff was the head of Interpol US.
When I first came to Interpol, Ira Einhorn was a premier fugitive from the United States that we wanted to see brought to justice. He was a high priority because of the heinousness of the crime. He was somebody who was in the public eye, and basically he was thumbing his nose at society, saying, I can do as I please because of who I am.
Right away, Interpol issues a red notice, their highest priority fugitive alert.
The red notice told the world that the United States, on behalf of the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, was looking for a murderer, Ira Einhorn.
U.S. Department of Justice Interpol liaison, Mary Jo Gruttenrath.
It gave them his picture, his fingerprints, his physical description, as much as we knew about any habits of his that might help the police to locate him.
DiBenedetto and Carbonell begin with Einhorn's collection of addresses, confiscated during the search of his apartment.
Second place is...
The manhunt won't be easy. The famous fugitive has more than 350 contacts in over 20 countries.
Fugitive investigations are difficult enough domestically. They're twice as complicated when you have to deal across international borders. So the officer needs to have somebody they can reach out to, and Interpol puts his badge out and makes it an international badge for him.
But even with Interpol's help, months pass. Ira Einhorn is out there, somewhere, seducing new supporters, perhaps trolling for new victims.
Einhorn is really your prototypical cult leader personality. He's charming, he's narcissistic, he's psychopathic in that he's enjoying of using people. And those are the same characteristics that guys like Jim Jones, David Koresh, Charlie Manson, they all have those types of characteristics and feel that it's okay to use all these people, and they're very adept at finding people to use. In a way, Einhorn had his own little cult going on.
Ira had a unique ability to attract women. I can't explain why. And he always, always, always took up with pretty women who had money. He wasn't interested in poor girls. They were not in his galaxy of interest. He always picked up with women who could support him.
In this way, the fugitive remains well-funded, protected, and hidden from police. While the search for Einhorn continues, police delve into his past for clues. They find ex-girlfriends who tell of terrible abuse, especially when they try to leave him. Abusers like Einhorn do not like rejection.
And that moment of deflation is a very dangerous moment because they don't like to experience that feeling. They'd rather feel powerful and in control. The only way to restore that in that moment is to become extremely violent.
The Philadelphia police and the FBI are desperate to catch Einhorn, not just to bring him to trial for Holly's murder, but because he might also kill Anna Jo Williams if she tries to leave him.
Once a person has crossed the threshold of taking a human life, there's nothing holding him back. He's got no remorse, there's nothing to stop him from doing it.
The threat to Anna Jo Williams is very real. Police fear Ira Einhorn is not yet finished. After police discover the mummified body of Holly Maddox in Philadelphia, Interpol and police around the world search for her suspected killer, famous peace activist Ira Einhorn, who jumped bail. Philadelphia police and the FBI comb through evidence collected from Einhorn's apartment. Some of the most disturbing pieces of evidence are Holly's journals. Her writing reveals details of a terrifying and abusive relationship. Holly's sister, Meg Wakeman.
The investigators found that the relationship was more than just rocky emotionally. They found that it was very physically abusive, and they could see her withdrawing into the stance that someone who's abused takes.
Police also scour Einhorn's journals and discover a chilling penchant for violence.
He probably enjoyed writing about it, enjoyed reflecting upon it, and considered it important because he had done it and thus worth memorializing.
Some entries seem to muse over the possibility of murder, corroborating the belief that Einhorn killed Holly to possess and control her fully. It was becoming clear that Einhorn's violence wasn't confined to Holly. Interpol's John M. Hoff.
Law enforcement was very intent on bringing Ira Einhorn to justice, but there was a great deal of concern that he would kill again. He quite clearly had no compunction about what he had done when he killed Holly Maddox, and for someone to kill so ruthlessly, you would think it's not a stretch that he would do it again.
Einhorn's journals provide other valuable clues. Fugitive tracker Richard DiBenedetto.
They were helpful in the sense that he talked about different acquaintances he had in other countries and how he had traveled to those countries over a period of years.
Einhorn seems particularly fond of the UK, and police believe he's in England or Ireland. In fact, they are correct. Einhorn and Anna Jo Williams have settled into Dublin, renting an apartment from Professor Dennis Weir and his wife. The fugitive uses his real name, though he tells the Weirs he is an American writer. Einhorn rarely goes out, and only occasionally talks to the Weirs, who grow increasingly uneasy with their new tenant.
There were various things about his manner which were a little bit strange, but they're very hard to define. I'm talking about a look, a mannerism, just a way of speaking that made one a little bit uncomfortable.
The Maddox family worries for Anna Jo Williams.
I thought, does she know what's going on? Does she have any idea that this guy had a dead body in his closet for a year and a half? Is she even thinking about the possibility that he could kill her for whatever reason he killed Holly?
In April 1981, the Weirs plan a trip to Chicago.
And so we told Ira that we were going to go to the States. And he became a little agitated at that point. And he said to my wife, "Don't talk about me in the States or you'll get me extradited." It was obviously a provocative sort of thing to say, and one which would inevitably excite one's curiosity.
Once in the U.S., Dennis Weir asks around, learns his tenant's true identity, and immediately goes to the Chicago FBI. When Philadelphia authorities learn of the sighting, their elation is short-lived.
Unfortunately, at the time, there was no extradition treaty between us and the Irish government.
It's maddening bad luck. They know where he is, but they can't arrest him.
The Irish police are not going to hold Mr. Einhorn because they can't extradite him back here. And since he's broken no laws in the Republic of Ireland, they have really no right by their law to hold him. So we were stuck.
Irish police can only escort the Weirs when they return home and help evict Einhorn. One of the world's most wanted fugitives simply walks away.
Off he went, and I remember very well. He scurried off. It was a strange feeling in the silence of the house, wondering what happens next.
Although the Weirs don't realize it, they haven't seen the last of Ira Einhorn. In Philadelphia, Carbonell and Di Benedetto keep working.
It was very frustrating when we discovered that Einhorn was in Ireland because we really couldn't do anything.
But by the same token, at least we had known where he was. So, I mean, that was of some help.
Now the manhunt has to sharpen its focus. Investigators update the Interpol Red Notice, hoping if Einhorn leaves Ireland, someone will spot him entering a country that will extradite him. With Einhorn's trail still hot, they immediately dispatch a detective to Dublin to ask questions. He cannot act under any authority, and if he runs into Einhorn, he can't arrest him. No one knows where Einhorn and Williams are now, but one neighbor says she recently got a letter from Williams. The letter itself contains no clues, but the envelope is postmarked from Wales. Investigators have tracked Einhorn from Philadelphia to Dublin and now to Wales. Tipped by a local innkeeper, Scotland Yard tracks Einhorn to a Welsh inn. The innkeeper recognized Einhorn from a TV program, but by the time the authorities arrive, the fugitive is long gone, and he's left no trace. For Holly Maddox's family, it's more terrible news.
That was another devastating loss because there was the potential to have some type of closure within a reasonable period of time.
Now they must keep waiting. Di Benedetto vows not to let the family down.
Well, my gut feeling was that he was probably still around somewhere in Ireland, maybe out in the countryside at this point or something.
At the time, Dennis Weir teaches physics at Dublin's renowned Trinity College. In May of 1985, as he leaves the cafeteria, he runs into the fugitive.
I had this direct eye-to-eye confrontation with him. It was quite a mental exercise to decide what to do, especially when he simply brushed straight past me without acknowledging my presence and started to walk up the stairs.
The professor decides to follow the suspected murderer, no matter the risk. Einhorn refuses to talk.
And I actually walked behind him until we reached the front square of the college, that is to say, exited the building, and I stood there to watch him walk into the distance.
Professor Weir immediately contacts Philadelphia authorities. By this time, the U.S. has an extradition treaty with Ireland. Detective Michael Gormley of the Irish police launches the offensive in a matter of hours. But it's too late.
By the time we located Ira Einhorn's address in Dublin, he was gone at that stage. He had gone.
The apartment is one of a few hideaways Einhorn has been using. Einhorn has an endless supply of money. Interpol hopes neighbors can help. Many know the American couple, and some saw them leave suddenly the day before.
I spoke to about a dozen people. Every one of them described him as a charmer, well-read, well-versed, and could speak about any subject under the sun.
They knew he hung out at the college and at local bookshops, but not today. Another miss, but police won't give up.
Obviously, it was very frustrating again. By the same token, I was somewhat optimistic because now we had found him twice in a period of 4 or 5 years. You know, maybe our chances were getting better here now.
But Einhorn remains elusive. Then, in late 1985, the break police had been waiting for literally walks in their door. Just 6 months after the last Dublin sighting, Anna Jo Williams suddenly resurfaces in the United States, willing to talk. Fugitive and murder suspect Ira Einhorn is last seen in 1985 in Dublin, Ireland, where he lived with his American girlfriend. 6 months later, the girlfriend returns to Philadelphia, alone, and comes to the police on the advice of her lawyer. This might be it, if Anna Jo Williams will lead them to Einhorn. She dashes their hopes, saying she doesn't know where he is, since they separated in Ireland. He was becoming more violent toward her, and she got scared. Luckily, he decided she was a nuisance to him, and he threw her out. But she offers police 2 solid leads. One is that Einhorn kept contact with a rich heiress in Canada. The second lead is that Einhorn spent a lot of time with one particular friend. A man named Nicholas Edwards, who owns a Dublin bookstore. Right away, Irish police set up surveillance, hoping Einhorn will show. Yet again, the fugitive stays underground. Interpol's Mary Jo Gruttenrath.
The reason it was hard to find Einhorn was he was resourceful himself. He was an intelligent man. He was clever. He took up with people who would cover for him. And he was on the move.
But so are police. FBI Special Agent Michael Carbonell works with Royal Canadian Mounted Police to track down the wealthy heiress mentioned by Einhorn's girlfriend, Mary Jo Williams.
She refused to be interviewed, and then they threatened her with some legal action. She came to the United States and provided a statement.
The FBI and the Philadelphia DA interrogate the heiress. At first, she is elusive, still instinctively protective of Einhorn.
One of the things that enables a guy like Einhorn to exist, a psychopathic person who's going to use people, is that normal human beings want to trust. A guy like Ira Einhorn will engage in relationships with women, seduce them with what they want to hear, bring them in, and then gradually get them accustomed to what the real agenda is, which is to control and dominate.
Facing prison time, she agrees to talk. She admits to funneling money to the fugitive.
And that is one of the reasons he was able to live overseas and to stay ahead of us on the run, because he was actually receiving financial assistance from this person.
But she recently broke ties with him.
She supposedly finally realized that he really did kill Holly Maddox, that he had been conning her all along.
Finally, the heiress tells them what they want to know. She thinks Einhorn is in Stockholm, Sweden, living with a woman named Marie Valborg. investigators move from Dublin to Stockholm. Working through Interpol, Philadelphia authorities have Stockholm police rush Valborg's home. In Einhorn's room, Stockholm police find a hot cup of coffee and a cigarette still burning in the ashtray. Someone must have tipped Einhorn off, someone who knew the Canadian heiress ID'd him. In any case, he's gone.
You're following a trail, and sometimes that trail is cold, sometimes it's hot. In the Ira Einhorn case, had several hot trails, and they don't come up that often. So when you are real close and you almost catch somebody, huge frustration.
They miss him by perhaps seconds. And a massive search in Stockholm comes up empty. Once again, Ira Einhorn has vanished. And soon, so does Marie Valborg.
We sent leads to virtually every European country. Spain, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, and none of the leads ever panned out. But, you know, in this business, you keep, you know, when you develop leads, you send them because you never know.
Now all the FBI and the Philadelphia police can do is wait. Almost 11 years after the brutal murder of Holly Maddox, her killer, Ira Einhorn, remains on the run. The grueling wait for answers takes its toll on Holly's parents.
Even though it damaged their health, certainly, it took years off their lives. It hurt them so much to the core that they couldn't even heal from deep inside. We were angry that he kept getting away.
Both Fred and Elizabeth Maddox die while their daughter's killer is still on the run. The family keeps pressuring the police, and in 1993, a Philadelphia jury convicts Einhorn in absentia of murder. Carbonell and Di Benedetto still have to find him.
Weekly, we would meet and discuss what to do, because some things sometimes you just run out of leads. There's, you know, you've done it, you've been over it, there's nothing. It languishes, and we would go back over and re-interview people, and, you know, we knew the guy was still out there.
Now, they just have to find him. Finally, in 1997, another big break, thanks to authorities' attention to the smallest detail. Interpol Sweden runs a check on Einhorn and his latest girlfriend, Marie Valborg. And this time, they get a hit. A woman named Marie Valborg Edwards has applied for a driver's license in France. Police believe she is living in Champagne-Mouton, France.
Well, when this information came to us, Rich and I knew that we had Einhorn.
Michael Carbonell and Richard Di Benedetto have worked together on the case continuously for about 9 years.
That's the most excited that both of us were on the case, because we were both convinced that he was in France with her.
But there's a problem.
This house is out in the countryside, and it's kind of isolated.
French authorities must go in undercover to get close.
What they were doing was, over a period of a few weeks, they were posing as fishermen in a stream by the house.
One day, they spot someone there. It's Einhorn. It's now or never.
We were concerned that Einhorn would flee once again. We didn't want that to happen because we had never been closer to him. I mean, this was it.
On June 13th, 1997, French police raid Einhorn's house in Champagne-Mouton and capture the fugitive, who remains smug, smiling at the cameras.
So when the French police actually laid their hands on him and he was in handcuffs, it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment. Rich and I were just ecstatic. It was one of the more satisfying moments of my career.
I felt like justice had been served, and I was especially happy for the Maddox family.
But it's not over yet. France refuses to extradite Einhorn, because he's already been convicted, and they refuse to hand him over if he might face the death penalty. 4 years of legal wrangling commence. The U.S. authorities have to convince the French government they won't seek the death penalty, and they will retry Einhorn. On July 20th, 2001, Ira Einhorn once again sets foot on American soil in Philadelphia, this time in shackles, surrounded by U.S. Marshals. It's been over 20 years since he jumped bail and fled.
It was a huge victory for justice just in getting him back here, because everything was back on track as it should have been.
On October 17th, 2002, a jury finds Ira Einhorn guilty of Holly's murder and sentences him to life in prison without parole. Thanks to the police work of agencies around the world working with Interpol, Ira Einhorn will never leave prison alive.
I wish my parents could have been alive to be in the courtroom to see the verdict come down and realize that their daughter's killer was now not going to have a life of freedom like he had enjoyed and flaunted in everyone's face. But I think all of us all feel that they know it,